Okay, so this is a video introducing you to the prologue from Romeo and Juliet. Prologue means essentially a passage that takes place before the story. In this case, the prologue sets the scene and provides the exposition for the story. You'll recognise the word exposition from your study of English Language Paper 1, Question 3, where you've looked at structural features. So the exposition introduces the themes, the characters, and it also introduces the setting, those kind of things. In Shakespeare's case, the prologue essentially tells the entire story to the audience and allows for a sense of proleptic irony, in the sense that it foreshadows all the later events so that the audience are almost in on that information as you're exploring the story. Not only that, but it introduces many themes and many motifs that run all the way through Romeo and Juliet and are really fundamental to it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that this is a sonnet. Now, a sonnet is a 14-line poem traditionally about love and conflict, and these are two themes that are absolutely fundamental to Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare wrote a huge number of sonnets with the theme of love at the heart of them. So Shakespeare uses that sonnet form here to introduce the themes of this tragic love story for Romeo and Juliet. It's written in iambic pentameter. Now, I won't go into that too much at this stage, but iambic pentameter relates simply to the number of stressed syllables within each line. We'll probably talk about that in a little bit more detail when we get to other characters, such as the nurse, who don't speak in iambic pentameter. But for now, we'll just introduce you to that term, iambic pentameter. So the prologue sets the scene for the story and provides the exposition. It will be read by the chorus, who is our narrator. Normally in Shakespeare's day and in more modern productions of Shakespeare, that chorus, that narrator, is normally just one speaker who narrates the story. Before we do anything else, let's just read the text and we'll do a little bit of definition, translation, so that you can understand the language. Just so that you're aware, any words here at the side with the numbers alongside them, the numbers relate to the line references, and any words that are particularly archaic, that just means very old-fashioned, or words that wouldn't be easy to translate for a modern audience, are defined for you there. So for instance, if you look at line 6, star-crossed means ill-fated. Okay, means that they are fated to have something bad happen to them. So let's just read the prologue first of all, and then we'll start to annotate. In this video, the annotations are already done for us, just to ease us in and just have them visible while you're annotating. In the later ones, I'll actually annotate in real time and be updating those annotations with you and telling you which are our gold quotes and things like that. So the text itself, the prologue. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove, is now the 2 hours' traffic of our stage, the which if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So let's just define what some of these words mean. Two households, both alike in dignity. Essentially, two families, both alike in terms of status, both of similar status, similar regard within the society. In fair Verona, Verona is a city in Italy, where our scene is set. From ancient grudge, from an old fight, comes new conflict, new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean, where the bloods of these well-to-do families will make unclean the hands of one another and will stain the hands of one another, suggesting that both families are responsible and guilty in some way. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes. Now, in Shakespeare's time, Shakespeare would have been pronounced differently because it was in early modern English. So that word loins would actually have been pronounced more like loins, and it would have meant lines in modern day English. It's a play on words. Loins meaning bedclothes, but also lines meaning family lines, as in a family tree, like genealogical lines, the line that you belong to in your family. So from the fatal lineage, the fatal lines of these two enemies, so born of those two families, a pair of star-crossed lovers, so a pair of lovers who are destined to be together, brought together by fate, take their life, whose misadventure piteous overthrows doth with their death bury their parents' strife. So through their death, the feud is put to one side. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, so their death-marked love meaning their love that was doomed with death, their love in the sense that it was doomed to end and they were doomed to die, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which naught but their children's end could remove. So only the death of these two children, Romeo and Juliet, these young teenagers, could end that feud between their parents, the Capulets and the Montagues. Is now the 2 hours traffic of our stage, the which if you were patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. So essentially, the chorus is there saying to you, anything that you might have missed there, you're going to see in the next 2 hours, and we will fill you in fully now on the details. That's the promise they make to you. So the prologue introduces a number of key themes and ideas, repeated motifs that come through again and again. The first one is this one, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. This mention of blood and guilt, you might recognise that kind of idea of having blood on your hands, that association of guilt. So Shakespeare is reminding us that both families are to blame here. Both families end up with blood on their hands, end up carrying that guilt. But also, you can see I've highlighted this word blood particularly, and I've written here, imagery of blood as being intrinsic to identity. That just means your blood is a part of who you are. Your blood is part of your heritage, your family line, what makes you you. So that's what that means by intrinsic to identity. And that theme of blood as being part of your heritage, your bloodline, is something that comes through Romeo and Juliet, because the families are feuding simply because they are members of opposing families. We also have this part here. A pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. This introduces the theme of fate and destiny. You might recognise, if you did Lord of the Flies, the celestial imagery here, the reference to the stars. Celestial imagery just means anything in reference to the stars, space, and anything in that kind of celestial dimension. And so this represents the idea of destiny. The two of them were destined to be together, and it introduces this idea of fatalism. There's a lot in Romeo and Juliet about the idea that the two lovers can't resist what fate has in store for them, and they try to defy the will of fate, but they can't quite do that. Equally, this part here, their death-marked love, I highlighted this part because of that juxtaposition, death and love being aligned together. And by love being aligned with death, it shows that death will end the feud, death will be the result of their love, it aligns love and death together, but actually it is the death of the two lovers that will cause the family to be reunited, the two families to be united together and to end that feud. So in fact, death almost allows love to survive, love to triumph, because it allows the families to end that feud. We've also got this point here, last point here, which continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end naught could remove. And I focus on this because this introduces a theme about the idea of the play as an exploration of parental love and guidance. We've got this idea that the death of the children is what has to happen in order to bring about the end of the rage of the parents, the end of the conflicts between the parents. And this idea of the kind of absence of parental love and guidance is a really key theme in Romeo and Juliet, because Romeo and Juliet don't feel that they can trust and open up and be kind of honest with their parents about their blossoming love as it starts to form. So they start looking elsewhere for love and support. So this idea of the play being an exploration of parental guidance, or the absence of parental guidance from Romeo and Juliet's mother and father, is very well established here. So we have this idea that we are in Verona. There are two warring families. There are two lovers who are destined to be together, and their deaths will help to reunite the two families. And all of that is contained within the prologue. And so that sets us up for the rest of the play with an understanding of all those details of the exposition, the setting, the characters, the situation, the potential complication that we're going to be faced with. that will unfold in the coming scenes. So we'll do the same process for each individual scene. After each individual scene, there will be tasks as well for you to follow along on the VLE. And once you've done your own annotations in your own copy, you can then move on to the tasks and then move on to the next scene. Okay, well done.